Hello everyone, I'm Henry from the GMBN Tech channel. So today we're going to be looking at substandard shifting and inexcusable indexing. You guessed it, we're going to be looking at our rear mechs. Now we adjust our rear mechs by changing two things: our cable tension, which affects how the chain moves from one gear to another, and our limit screws, which affect how the derailleur sits at its outer extremities. Now, before we even touch our cable tension, I want us to look at our limit screws. Now we do this first so we don't potentially damage our frame or spokes as the chain rides off, and also it provides a great starting point for our setup. We want to adjust these screws so the centre of the jockey wheels line up exactly with the applicable gear on the outer reach of the cassette. So with these screws, the more you dial them in, the more it limits the movement of the mech. So on some derailleurs you have a H and an L to signify your high and your low limit screws, but not always. Like this one for instance doesn't. But a really easy way to do it is you dial it in and then back it off, and you should be able to see movement. But it's really important you dial it in first, because then you're not going to risk losing the chain off the cassette and it could potentially damage your frame or your spokes. Now when we put a new cable in, it's really important to make sure we have some adjustment left on the barrel adjuster should we need it. So what I like to do is dial it all the way in and then turn it anti-clockwise about 2.5–3 revolutions. Now what this means is if I do the cable too tight, I can then release tension from the system with the barrel adjuster here. So once we've lined up our barrel adjuster with that 3 turns, we then set the cable at the other end. So we pull through a nice moderate tension and then nip that bolt up to the appropriate torque. Now a really simple way to index your gears is to move up through the cassette, and you're going to go 2 gears at a time. So 2 clicks, and it's actually getting hung about in that middle gear. So 2 clicks, yet again it's getting hung about in this middle gear when it should have gone straight to that one. So that would suggest there isn't enough tension on the system. So I'm going to add a bit of tension. Now I'm going to work my way back down the cassette. Now I'm going to shift 2 down, so it should go to this gear immediately, but if it gets hung up in this gear, it means there's too much tension on the system. Oh, that's okay, it's hesitating a bit. So just by going up and down, I think it needs a bit more tension. We're just going to do it until it never gets caught in that middle gear. Also, you can use your ears a bit if it's ticking a lot in one particular gear. Yeah, but that looks pretty good now, it's going straight into it. Now, in an ideal world, we don't want to be using all of the adjustment on this barrel here, because we might need to make some quick adjustments when we're out riding, and if there's already maximum tension, then you won't be able to add any more. As we move through our gears up the cassette, you may notice that on some of the larger cogs getting to those dinner plates, the chain or even the jockey wheel might foul a little as it goes along. This is where B tension comes in. B tension adjusts how far that top jockey wheel sits away from the teeth of the cassette. If it's too close, you might even hear a prang or a rubbing noise as it goes up into the larger gears. And if it's too far away, you might even get a really sloppy or inconsistent shift down the smaller blocks of the cassette. So what I like to do is dial in the tension until on the biggest gear, the teeth of the jockey wheel are just nearly kissing, a few millimeters away from kissing, the teeth of the cassette. Some companies even provide little tools, such as Eagle, you get that little red tool, but you don't really need it. It shouldn't make a noise. If it does, it's too close. Now, if you're really struggling with getting the desired performance from your rear mech, it's really worth thinking about factors that might affect this. So I would think about a worn chain, worn cassette. Things like your inner cables are not only very cheap to replace, but will have a dramatic effect if they come across corrosion or get any dirt in there and things like that. So for a relatively cheap part, it can really affect how your whole kind of very expensive and nice bike feels. I think sometimes companies label things as e-bike specific or e-bike this and e-bike that. And sometimes I feel it's a bit of a gimmick. However, Drivetrains is somewhere that I would beg to differ. E-bike drivetrains are stiffer, heavier and more durable, and they allow for more torque to be put through the system. An example of this is just looking at one of these chains. You can see the bushings and the rollers are just so much meatier, and that provides a stiffer interface for the derailleur to work. As you can see, these rollers are so much bigger than on a standard chain, and it's actually not unheard of for downhill teams to use e-bike specific chains, just so when they're grabbing a load of gears out the start gate, they'll have a stiffer and sharper transfer. So it's really as simple as that. Changing and adjusting your gears doesn't have to be this huge undertaking that takes up hours. It can rather be a quick adjustment before the start of a ride. Now, if you want to see how Jonesy got on testing the new Merida, click here. And if you want to see those two pillocks just falling off their bikes, click down here.